A mysterious fleet of massive, ancient ships drifted in the endless void beyond the known galaxy. Shimmering with age and cloaked in a halo of cosmic dust, the vessels were unlike anything recorded in the galactic archives. Each ship was a monolith, spanning kilometers, with dark, jagged hulls that absorbed light rather than reflected it. They seemed lifeless at first, silent monuments in the great abyss. Yet as the alien reconnaissance team drew closer, their sensors buzzed with faint, inexplicable signals, whispers from a bygone age. Captain Tkal of the Kenzari research vessel stood on the bridge, his 4 eyes fixed on the flickering readouts before him. His crew, a mix of seasoned explorers and wide-eyed scientists, worked feverishly to analyze the anomaly. The fleet wasn't emitting any standard energy signatures, no standard propulsion trails or active defenses. But it was there, undeniably real, and it was human. Are we certain of this? Tkal's voice carried the deep timbre of someone unused to doubt. These vessels belonged to the ancient humans? The lead analyst, Lieutenant Ibarra, hesitated before responding. Her 3-digit hands hovered over the console, pulling up a series of aged data streams. Captain, the materials, the design elements, everything matches the known markers of pre-collapse human technology. If these readings are correct, these ships date back tens of millennia. They were built long before humans vanished from the galactic stage. Tkal frowned. Humanity was a name often spoken of in stories and cautionary tales. In the current era, humans were considered a minor presence, scattered and diminished. Their once great civilization had crumbled eons ago, and their achievements had been overshadowed by newer, more dominant species. Yet this fleet suggested a different narrative, one hidden in the cracks of history. The bridge went silent as the first visual feed came through. The alien crew gasped softly. The lead ship of the fleet was enormous, its hull covered in what appeared to be intricate carvings or engravings, an ancient language none of their translators could decode. Energy signatures pulsed faintly along its surface, like the heartbeat of a slumbering giant. "Lieutenant, what's the origin point of these ships?" Tkal asked. Ibarra squinted at the data. They were launched from the Sol system. Earth. The mere mention of Earth sent a ripple of unease through the crew. It was a world that held a mythical status, the cradle of humanity's rise, and the source of countless legends. Over time, most species in the galaxy had come to see Earth as a relic of the past, its people scattered and its glory days long forgotten. Yet this fleet painted a different picture. "Captain," another officer called out, their tone sharp. "We're detecting a signal. It's weak, but consistent. A repeating pattern. It's coming from the lead vessel. Can you decode it?" Tkal asked. The officers shook their head. "Not yet. The format is unusual. It doesn't match any known human communication protocols. It's as if it's using a language that predates our entire historical record of them." Tkal's expression darkened. There was no precedent for what they were encountering. This wasn't just a fleet, it was a message, a remnant of something far older and more enigmatic than any galactic power had suspected. The idea that the humans had built and abandoned such a monumental armada raised uncomfortable questions. What could have driven them to create these ships? And why had they been left adrift, silent sentinels in the depths of space? As the crew worked to unravel the signal, a faint voice crackled through the comms. It was in a language no one understood, but it carried a tone of urgency, a pleading undertone that set the crew on edge. Tkal leaned forward, his claws digging into the armrest of his chair. The voice repeated its message, over and over, until the bridge seemed to hum with its rhythm. "Keep decoding," Tkal ordered. "Whatever this message is, it's been waiting a long time to be heard." Little did the crew know, they were on the brink of uncovering a truth that would shake their understanding of humanity, and the galaxy, forever. The alien researchers worked tirelessly, parsing the cryptic signal emanating from the ancient fleet. Weeks stretched into months as they pieced together fragments of an unknown language. Every breakthrough brought both excitement and unease, as the meaning of the message grew clearer. It wasn't merely a distress signal or a plea for help, it was something much larger, a warning wrapped in layers of encoded data. As they decoded the transmissions, a picture began to emerge. The fleet's builders, long-forgotten human ancestors, had constructed these massive ships in a desperate bid to prepare for an existential threat. The message spoke of an enemy not bound by the rules of conventional warfare, an enemy that moved unseen and struck without warning. The ancient humans had faced this threat head-on, but the records were incomplete. What little they found hinted at a cataclysmic struggle, one that reshaped the galaxy and led to humanity's retreat from the stars. Captain Tkal called a council meeting aboard the Kenzari research vessel. The conference room was filled with grim-faced officers and lead scientists. The air felt heavy with the weight of discovery. "The message is clear," Tkal began. "These ships were not abandoned. They were left here as a failsafe. The humans of old believed that if this enemy ever returned, their descendants, or perhaps even other species, might be able to use this fleet to mount a defense." One of the scientists, a veteran researcher named Valrak, chimed in. "But it's more than that, Captain. The final portions of the message suggest that the enemy may not be entirely external. The wording is ambiguous. There are references to internal divisions, to humanity's own nature being both their greatest weapon and their greatest threat." The room grew quiet. The idea that the ancient humans had not only fought a cosmic adversary but had also struggled against their own darker impulses left the crew uneasy. Tkal tapped his claws on the metal table, deep in thought. "If that's true," he said slowly, "then this fleet isn't just a relic. It's a warning. A reminder of what can happen when a civilization loses its way." Another officer, younger and more skeptical, raised a hand. "Captain, even if we've deciphered the message, how can we be certain the enemy is still a threat? Perhaps the humans defeated it for good. Perhaps this is just a precaution that's no longer needed." Valrak shook his head. "The data doesn't suggest that. It's incomplete, yes, but there are indications that the enemy wasn't eradicated. It was suppressed. Contained. The ancient humans believed it might resurface." Tkal frowned. "Which means the fleet was left here as a contingency. The question is, should we activate it?" The room erupted in debate. Some argued that the fleet should remain dormant, a monument to the past rather than a potential catalyst for new conflicts. Others insisted that activating the ships was the only way to truly understand the scope of the ancient humans' actions and to prepare for whatever threat might still be lurking. Amid the heated discussion, a junior communications officer burst into the room. "Captain. We've picked up another transmission from the fleet. It's different this time. Stronger. More coherent." Tkal waved the crew into silence. "Play it." The room hushed as the recording played. The voice, still in that ancient, partially decoded language, sounded more urgent, more forceful. Though the words were not fully understood, the tone was unmistakable, a warning of something drawing closer, something awakening. As the message looped, Tkal made his decision. "Prepare a team," he ordered. "We're boarding the lead vessel." The room broke into a flurry of activity. Teams of researchers and engineers gathered equipment, while security personnel armed themselves with non-lethal defenses. Tkal knew the risks of entering a ship that had been dormant for thousands of years, but he also understood that the mystery could no longer be ignored. As they approached the airlock of the lead vessel, the faint hum of its dormant systems seemed to grow louder, as if the ship itself were aware of their presence. Tkal's team exchanged uneasy glances, and even the most seasoned crew members felt the weight of history pressing down on them. The airlock hissed open, revealing a dark corridor lined with ancient machinery. The interior of the ship was both awe-inspiring and unsettling, massive hallways that seemed designed for beings larger than any known species. Control panels that glowed faintly with unknown energy, and walls etched with carvings that told a story no one fully understood. As they ventured deeper into the ship, the signal grew stronger, guiding them toward a central chamber. The sense of foreboding deepened. What would they find at the heart of this ancient relic? Would the answers they sought bring clarity, or would they uncover something far more dangerous than they had ever imagined? The central chamber loomed before them, its colossal doors standing closed, smooth and seamless. There were no visible controls, no obvious mechanisms, only the intricate carvings that had appeared throughout the ship. The team's head engineer, Kaler, ran his scanner along the door's surface. A faint hum pulsed through the device, and the engineer furrowed his brow. "Captain Tkal," Kaler said, "this door isn't locked. It's waiting." "Waiting?" Tkal repeated, his 4 eyes narrowing. "What does that mean?" Kaler hesitated, choosing his words carefully. "The energy reading suggests that it's keyed to a specific input, something that will trigger it to open. But whatever that trigger is, it's not something we can replicate with our current technology. It's as if the ship is recognizing us as outsiders. It knows we're not the ones it was built for." "Then how do we proceed?" Tkal asked, his voice measured but firm. Before Kaler could respond, a low vibration spread through the floor. It wasn't a tremor, exactly, more like a deep, resonant sound that seemed to come from the very core of the ship. The lights along the walls brightened, their glow no longer faint but steady and purposeful. The carvings on the door shimmered, lines of light tracing the ancient symbols in a sequence that no one could decipher. And then, as if responding to an unspoken command, the doors began to part. Slowly, silently, they revealed a chamber unlike anything the team had imagined. The room was massive, its walls lined with consoles that displayed holographic readouts in the same undecipherable language. At its center stood a towering construct, a cylindrical structure that pulsed with blue and gold energy. It appeared ancient, yet fully functional, as though it had been waiting for this very moment to come alive. The team stepped inside cautiously, their equipment at the ready. Tkal felt a weight on his shoulders, the gravity of their discovery pressing down on him. Every step brought them closer to the construct, and every step seemed to amplify the low hum that filled the chamber. The sound was not just audible, it was almost tangible, vibrating in their bones and resonating in their minds. Kaler approached the construct, his scanner in hand. The device sputtered and blinked as though overwhelmed by the sheer complexity of what it was analyzing. "Captain," Kaler said quietly, "this isn't just a control center. It's a memory core." "A memory core?" Tkal asked. "Explain." Kaler gestured to the structure. "This is where the fleet's creators stored their collective knowledge. All their plans, their history, their reasons for building these ships, it's all here. If we can access it, we might be able to understand exactly what they were preparing for." "But if it's that important," said Lieutenant Ibarra, who had been silent until now, "why did they abandon it? Why leave it dormant for so long?" The room fell silent as the question lingered. Tkal took a deep breath and stepped closer to the memory core. "Kaler, can we interface with it?" Kaler hesitated. "Not directly. The technology is too different. But we might be able to trigger a playback of some kind, something that doesn't require full translation. It would be fragments, at best, but it's worth a try." "Do it," Tkal ordered. Kaler set his scanner to a new mode, directing a focused beam of energy at a small, illuminated node on the construct's surface. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the chamber was bathed in light as the memory core began to project holographic images into the air. The team watched in awe as scenes from a long-lost era unfolded before them. The holograms showed fleets of ships, larger than anything the galaxy had ever seen, engaged in a titanic battle. But their enemy was not another fleet. It was a shifting, amorphous presence, a darkness that seemed to consume light and matter alike. The ancient humans fought valiantly, their ships weaving intricate patterns of energy and fire, but the darkness was relentless. One image lingered longer than the others, a council of humans, their faces grim, standing before a massive star chart. They pointed to a distant sector of the galaxy, where the darkness had been contained. Their expressions spoke volumes. This was not victory. It was a stopgap. A delay. The last resort of a civilization that knew it had reached its limit. The holograms faded, leaving the chamber in silence once more. Tkal turned to his crew. "This is what they left behind," he said, his voice heavy with the weight of the revelation. "Not just a fleet, but a warning. They faced a threat that defied understanding, something that couldn't be destroyed, only held at bay. And they knew it would return." The team stood in solemn reflection, the enormity of their discovery sinking in. This fleet wasn't just a relic of the past. It was a challenge to the present and a call to action. As the projections faded, the chamber felt colder, quieter. Captain Tkal took a deep breath and turned back to the core. The weight of the ancient human's burden now rested squarely on his shoulders. If this fleet was their legacy, if these ships were built to defend against an enemy that could not truly be destroyed, then the Kenzari researchers had stumbled upon more than history. They had uncovered a responsibility. Lieutenant Ibarra finally broke the silence. "Captain, these ships, this memory core, it changes everything we thought we knew about humanity's role in the galaxy. They weren't the primitive warmongers we've been taught about. They were fighting something we still can't comprehend. What do we do now?" Tkal glanced around at his crew. These were some of the best minds the Kenzari had to offer, but the questions they were now facing seemed beyond all of them. Still, he knew one thing for certain: the answers weren't going to come from staying aboard their research vessel, poking at the edges of the mystery. They had to dig deeper. They had to understand the fleet's full capabilities and, if possible, determine if that ancient enemy was still out there, waiting. "We need to fully activate the lead ship," Tkal said, his voice steady. "Not just this core, but the entire vessel. There might be more information locked behind systems we haven't yet brought online. If the humans left instructions on how to deal with that threat, we have to find them." "But Captain," Kaler interjected, "activating these systems could trigger, well, who knows what. If the enemy's still out there, it might notice. And we have no idea what kind of defenses the ship might have. It could be dangerous." Tkal nodded. "I'm aware of the risks. But we've already entered the chamber. We've already started the sequence by accessing this core. If the fleet systems are monitoring us, they'll know we're here. And if the enemy still exists, it may already be aware of our presence. Hesitating won't make us safer. It will only leave us blind to what's coming." The crew exchanged uneasy glances, but no one voiced further objections. They knew their captain was right. If they wanted to avoid another galactic catastrophe, they had to learn everything the ancient humans had left behind. Tkal turned back to Kaler. "How soon can we bring the ship's main systems online?" Kaler studied his scanner. "It will take time. Even with the core partially active, the rest of the ship is still in a dormant state. I'll need to interface with the secondary nodes scattered throughout the vessel. We'll have to do it in stages, but I can get started right away." "Then do it," Tkal said firmly. "Gather your team and begin. The rest of us will continue studying the data we've already uncovered." Over the next several days, the team worked tirelessly. Kaler and his engineers moved from node to node, deciphering ancient interfaces and reactivating dormant systems. Each new section of the ship that came online revealed more of its former power. Massive engines that had been silent for millennia hummed to life. Weapon systems, though still locked down, began running diagnostics. Interior lighting spread through the dark corridors, illuminating forgotten chambers filled with strange artifacts and technology. Meanwhile, Lieutenant Ibarra and the scientists delved deeper into the memory core's fragmented records. They found hints of the humans' desperation in their final days as a galactic power. They had fought the enemy across dozens of systems, sacrificing entire fleets to keep it contained. The humans knew they couldn't win in the conventional sense. Instead, they had constructed this fleet as their last statement, a warning, a guide, and a potential shield for the future. What unsettled the team most, however, was a recurring phrase that appeared in the decoded messages: "The darkness returns." It was never explained, never defined. It was simply stated as a certainty. The ancient humans seemed to have accepted it as inevitable, and that acceptance shaped their actions. As the final nodes came online, the lead ship reached full operational status. Kayla reported back to Tkal, his expression both triumphant and wary. "Captain, the vessel is fully powered. All primary systems are running. But we've also triggered a new sequence in the memory core. It's broadcasting something, another message." "Another warning?" Tkal asked. Kayla shook his head. "Not a warning this time. Instructions. It's a series of commands, Captain. I think they're meant to guide us on what to do next." Tkal straightened. "Then we follow them. Whatever the ancient humans left behind, they believed it was critical enough to leave for their descendants, or whoever found these ships. We've come this far. We can't turn back now." The crew prepared to implement the instructions, unsure of what they would lead to. The ancient humans had set these events in motion long ago, and now the Kenzari team was stepping into their shoes. They had uncovered the first layers of the fleet's secrets, but the deeper truths, and the galaxy's future, still lay ahead. As the ancient ship's full systems came online, the atmosphere aboard the vessel shifted. The dim, dormant corridors now buzzed faintly with energy. Lights flickered on in long unused passageways, revealing signs of wear and the eerie artistry of the humans who had built it. The air grew heavier, charged with both the ship's ancient power and the crew's unease. Captain Tkal and his officers gathered in what they assumed was the ship's command center. It was a vast, circular chamber lined with holographic consoles and intricate carvings. At its heart stood a raised platform surrounded by a shimmering hologram, an incomplete star map with countless annotations in the undeciphered human script. From this central hub, the Kenzari team hoped to follow the instructions left behind in the memory core. "Lieutenant Ibarra," Tkal said, "what do we know about these instructions so far?" Ibarra studied the central display. "They appear to be a sequence of actions, primarily navigational and system adjustments. It's almost as if they're preparing the fleet for something. But what's concerning is that some of these commands involve activating the other ships in the fleet. If we follow this sequence, we won't just wake up the lead vessel. We'll be reactivating the entire armada." The room fell silent. The implications of such a move weighed heavily on them. This wasn't just about understanding the ancient humans anymore. It was about reigniting a dormant force that had been silent for millennia. "Do we have any idea what the final step in the sequence is?" Tkal asked. Kayla shook his head. "Not yet. The final steps remain encrypted. We'll need to execute the earlier commands to unlock the rest of the data. It's a cascading sequence. Once we begin, we have to see it through. And if we don't?" Ibarra asked. "If we choose not to activate the rest of the fleet, could we leave it as it is?" Tkal considered the question carefully. "If the enemy the humans warned about truly returns, a dormant fleet would do us no good. But if we awaken it, we might be releasing something we don't fully understand." The crew exchanged uneasy glances. Some nodded, seeing the logic in preparing for the worst. Others hesitated, unsure if following the instructions of a long-gone civilization was worth the risk. Tkal made his decision. We didn't come this far to turn back now. Begin the sequence. Ivara and Kaler set to work, each command triggering a cascade of changes throughout the lead ship. The humming intensified, and the holographic map began to expand, revealing more of the ancient human star chart. Portions of the once dormant fleet around them lit up in sequence, their own systems responding to the signal from the lead vessel. Each new ship that came online added another layer to the data feed. More fragments of the human's message emerged, images of their ancient adversary, strategies employed in their long-ago battles, and an ever-present sense of urgency. The phrase, "The darkness returns," reappeared again and again, accompanied by an unknown symbol that glowed ominously on the map. But with every step forward, the crew felt the weight of the unknown pressing down harder. Their scanners detected faint anomalies in the surrounding space. Shadows on the edge of their sensors, patterns that defied known physics. The once distant threat was now a growing presence, and the urgency of the humans' warnings became more apparent. The Kenzari crew was no longer just a team of researchers. They were now part of the ancient humans' plan, set into motion millennia ago. The next steps would either confirm the humans' foresight or plunge the galaxy into a new era of uncertainty and danger. As the final phases of the activation sequence unfolded, the fleet's dormant systems roared to life. The hum of long-slumbering engines reverberated through the silent reaches of space. What was once a graveyard of dark, silent vessels now pulsed with energy. Lights coursed along the hulls of the enormous ships, forming complex patterns that hinted at their creators' advanced understanding of both technology and aesthetics. The stars themselves seemed dimmer by comparison. On the bridge of the lead ship, Captain Tkal watched as the ancient star map began to fill in the blanks. Entire regions of space, once labeled unknown, now glowed with the markings of the long-lost human empire. But alongside those markings were disturbing notations, symbols that repeated like warnings across the chart. The more data the fleet revealed, the clearer it became that these ships had not merely been built to fight, but to endure. They were weapons, yes, but also a testament to humanity's tenacity, their refusal to give in even when the odds were against them. Kaler, standing at the main console, turned to Tkal. "Captain, the system is asking for one final confirmation before proceeding. It's a command sequence labeled only as Resolution Protocol." Tkal's claws clicked against the armrest of his chair. "What do we know about it?" Kaler shook his head. "Almost nothing. The translation is fragmented. But it's clear that once the protocol is initiated, there's no reversing it. The fleet's full capabilities will come online, and what?" Tkal pressed. Kaler hesitated. "And something else. The energy readings suggest the fleet isn't just powering up. It's signaling. I can't confirm what or where, but it's reaching out. That could mean sending a distress call, or something far more consequential." Lieutenant Ivara leaned forward, studying the map. "Captain, if we don't activate the protocol, we'll remain in the dark about the fleet's full purpose. But if we do," she let the thought hang. The risks were obvious. Tkal weighed his options. He looked at the faces of his crew, their unease barely concealed behind professional composure. They had come so far, uncovered so much. Yet the decision before them felt impossibly heavy. Activating the protocol could bring answers, but it could also bring a danger they were unprepared to face. Finally, Tkal spoke. "Kaler, initiate the resolution protocol." A hush fell over the bridge as Kaler input the final commands. The ship shuddered slightly, as if exhaling after millennia of silence. The star map began to change again, but this time it wasn't just revealing new information. It was sending something out into the galaxy, a pulse of energy that rippled far beyond the fleet's immediate vicinity. The ship's displays filled with a cascading series of symbols, their meaning still unclear, but their urgency unmistakable. As the protocol completed, a new signal appeared on the map. It was distant, faint, but steadily growing stronger. It didn't resemble any known communication format. It was something entirely alien, yet eerily familiar. The crew watched in tense silence as the signal moved, slowly but unmistakably, toward the fleet. Tkal stood. "We've awakened the fleet, and something else as well. Prepare all systems. Whatever is out there, we need to be ready." The crew scrambled to their stations, tension thick in the air. The ancient humans' warning echoed in their minds, "The darkness returns." And now, the Kenzari were about to find out what that truly meant. The signal grew stronger with every passing hour, its presence felt as much as heard. It resonated through the ship's systems, creating a low, almost imperceptible vibration in the walls and floors. The alien crew worked tirelessly, scanning, analyzing, and attempting to decode what little they could. The fleet's own systems seemed to respond to the incoming signal, lighting up pathways and nodes that had remained dormant until this moment. Captain Tkal stood at the central console, his 4 eyes fixed on the holographic display. The signal had moved closer, no longer a faint blip on the edge of the map, it now glowed with a disturbing intensity. Around him, the crew murmured in worried tones, their usually disciplined voices betraying their mounting fear. "What have we learned?" Tkal asked sharply, his gaze not leaving the display. Kaler, the head engineer, looked up from his console. "Captain, the signal's origin is still unknown, but it's now clear that it's not just a passive transmission. It's active, adjusting its pattern as if it's probing, searching for a response. And I think it's tied directly to the resolution protocol. Whatever we activated, it was meant to draw this in." "Draw it in?" Ivara, the lead analyst, turned her 3 eyes toward Kaler. "Are you suggesting this signal is the enemy? That we've summoned the very thing the humans fought so hard to contain?" Kaler hesitated, his shoulders slumping under the weight of his words. "It's possible. The patterns match the fragments we saw in the memory core. The ancient humans called it the darkness. They built the fleet to fight it, or at least to keep it at bay. Activating the fleet may have stirred it." Tkal's voice cut through the murmurs. "If that's true, then we need to understand what we're dealing with before it reaches us. Continue your analysis. Use every resource we have. And keep the fleet on full alert." The crew snapped to their tasks, but the tension on the bridge was palpable. As the hours ticked by, the signal's approach slowed, but it did not stop. Its path was deliberate, as if it was studying the fleet before making its next move. The ancient star map adjusted again, highlighting a previously hidden sector of space. A faint echo of a recorded human voice played through the speakers, its tone urgent but indecipherable. "Play that again," Tkal ordered. The voice repeated, a short phrase in the forgotten human language. Though no one on the crew could understand it, the tone was unmistakably a warning. Kaler worked quickly, attempting to match the audio to the fragments of human language they had decoded earlier. After several attempts, Kaler's translator displayed a partial result: prepare, defense, not. The rest was scrambled, but the meaning was clear enough. The ancient humans had anticipated this moment. The fleet's activation wasn't just about uncovering the past, it was about ensuring survival. The lights on the ship dimmed momentarily, and then the display shifted. A new set of symbols appeared, accompanied by what looked like tactical readouts. The fleet's systems were responding automatically, as if they had been waiting for the signal to come within range. For the first time, the full scope of the fleet's armaments became clear. Weapons powered up along the hulls of the dormant ships, massive energy cannons humming as they drew power. Shields flared to life, forming a shimmering barrier around the lead vessel. But the crew's relief was short-lived. The signal's vibrations intensified, and for the first time, it began to emit a sound, deep, resonant, and alien. It wasn't a language, but it was communication all the same. The sound filled the ship, resonating in their bones, as though the signal were reaching not just their ears but their very beings. Tkal steadied himself against the console. "What's happening?" Ivara's voice trembled as she answered. "Captain, I think it knows we're here."